Baseball had never seen anything like this before. Two towering sluggers blasting home runs into the stratosphere, flexing their muscles and celebrating with bone-crushing forearm bashes like they were straight out of a wrestling ring. Mark McGwire and Jose Canseco weren't just teammates, they were a spectacle. They were the Bash Brothers. From 1986 to 1992, they didn't just hit home runs, they changed baseball itself. They turned the long ball into the sport's biggest attraction, made power hitters the most valuable players in the league, and turned the Oakland A's into one of the most dominant teams of their era. They were built differently, physically and mentally. They didn't play baseball the old school way. They played with swagger, intensity, and pure intimidation. But their legacy isn't just one of glory. It's also controversial. Because while they revolutionized baseball, they also became the faces of an era that MLB would later try to erase. So how did they change the game forever? Let's dive into the wild, unforgettable, and sometimes infamous reign of the Bash Brothers. Before they became baseball's most feared duo, Jose Canseco and Mark McGwire were two completely different players, walking two separate paths until destiny and the Oakland A's brought them together. The legend of the Bash Brothers began with Jose Canseco. Drafted by the Oakland Athletics in 1982, Canseco was a rare specimen, a slugger with the speed of a base stealer. By the time he made his MLB debut in 1985, he was already being hailed as baseball's next power icon.
Here's Jose Canseco, who looks like the Silver Surfer, sort of a comic book hero, huge, muscular. Whoa! Wow, did he crush that one? Jose Canseco off the facade of the upper deck. Welcome to the Bronx.
And in 1986, he proved it. Canseco crushed 33 home runs, drove in 117 RBIs, and stole 15 bases, winning American League Rookie of the Year. He was different, a player who could hit bombs and swipe bases at a time when power hitters were supposed to be slow-footed giants.
2 balls, 2 strikes. This ball's hit pretty well to left field. You can chalk out number 21 for Canseco. He hit it out of here.
He wasn't just a home run machine, he was a showman, and fans couldn't take their eyes off him. But Canseco wasn't going to carry the A's alone, because just as he was rising, Oakland was about to unleash another monster. If Canseco had power and speed, Mark McGwire had one thing: sheer brute force. Drafted in 1984, McGwire wasn't about stealing bases. He was about obliterating baseballs. A towering 6'5", he had the kind of power that made outfielders turn and watch.
McGwire, he's the toughest one because he gets all excited after he hits a home run and he'll knock you down.
It'll catch on with a flash.
And in 1987, he announced his arrival in the loudest way possible, by shattering the rookie home run record. McGwire crushed 49 home runs, led the AL in slugging percentage, and won Rookie of the Year, making it back-to-back wins for the A's. Just like that, Oakland had the two most dangerous power hitters in baseball, both under 25 years old. And then came the moment that changed baseball culture forever: the forearm bash.
I think the story that I heard was that Mark and Jose were sitting around one day, and they, both had big arms, obviously, so they compared forearms, and then they just came up with this, bash thing, and then it just kind of took off like that.
Every time one of them crushed a home run, they'd meet at home plate for a bone-rattling forearm bash, a celebration that was loud, aggressive, and downright electric.
Well, the bash started with myself and Jose Canseco. We were matching forearms one day in the clubhouse, and then it started in this year in '88, where we decided, instead of giving a high five, to bash our forearms together.
With that, the Bash Brothers were born, and baseball would never be the same again. By 1988, the Bash Brothers weren't just baseball stars. They were a full-blown cultural phenomenon. They looked like superheroes straight out of a comic book, chiseled, muscle-bound, and built like linebackers. When they stepped into the batter's box, it wasn't just about getting a hit. It was about destroying baseballs, and they did it better than anyone. Every at-bat felt like an event. Fans packed stadiums, glued to their TVs, waiting for those massive jaw-dropping home runs that seemed to leave the park in seconds. And when one of them launched a moonshot, you knew what was coming. The iconic forearm bash at home plate, an exclamation point on their dominance.
Well, a monster bash. Hubbard leaps in the air and had to reach up and almost couldn't reach his forearm.
In 1988, Jose Canseco had a season so ridiculous it didn't even seem real. He didn't just hit for power, he ran like a sprinter, turning himself into the ultimate baseball weapon. That year, he blasted 42 home runs, stole 40 bases, and drove in 124 RBIs, becoming the first player in MLB history to join the legendary 40-40 club. No one had ever done it before. Power hitters weren't supposed to be fast. Base stealers weren't supposed to hit 40 home runs. Canseco did both, rewriting what a superstar slugger could be. He was named American League MVP, and just like that, he wasn't just baseball's biggest power hitter, he was baseball's biggest attraction. But the real prize came in 1989. The A's were unstoppable, rolling through the regular season with 99 wins, and when they reached the playoffs, they were even more dominant.
What really is out there, I just know that we were really good. We just didn't have any weaknesses. Even our bench players were outstanding. They were not a weakness for our team. Our bullpen was outstanding. We didn't have a weak link on that team. So
then came the Bay Bridge World Series against the San Francisco Giants, a series that became famous for something no one saw coming. Just before Game 3, a massive 6.9 earthquake shook the stadium and sent shockwaves through the country. It was one of the most surreal moments in baseball history, an entire World Series paused by a natural disaster. But when play resumed, the A's wasted no time proving their dominance. They swept the Giants in 4 games, claiming their first World Series title since 1974. Canseco and McGwire weren't just stars anymore, they were champions.
Carney, just looking back at the 1989 World Series sweep, I mean, the Oakland A's scored 32 runs in the 4-game span, and you guys never even trailed on the scoreboard at all against the Giants.
By 1990, the A's were the undisputed kings of the American League, reaching their 3rd straight World Series. Even though they fell short that year, their impact had already changed baseball forever. They had redefined what it meant to be a power hitter. Before them, teams built rosters around contract hitters, speed, and small ball. After them, it was all about home runs. Suddenly, every team wanted a bash brother of their own, a massive, muscle-bound slugger who could send baseballs into orbit. The A's had started a revolution, and the rest of the league was scrambling to catch up. For years, the Bash Brothers had been untouchable, 2 larger-than-life sluggers who made baseball feel like a rock concert. But power like that doesn't last forever. Injuries, controversy, and one of the biggest scandals in baseball history were waiting right around the corner. By the early 1990s, the cracks started to show. Jose Canseco's body, once an unstoppable machine, began to break down. The very thing that made him a unicorn in baseball, his ability to hit massive home runs and steal bases, was also wearing him down. He battled hamstring issues, wrist injuries, and back problems that started chipping away at his dominance. Then came 1992, the moment no one saw coming. In the middle of the season, the A's sent shockwaves through the baseball world by trading Canseco mid-game to the Texas Rangers.
I've been having a lot of trouble accepting that. As a matter of fact, I can accept the fact that you're booed from away fans and said many things about or talked about.
Fans were stunned. The guy who had put Oakland on the map, the first member of the 40-40 club, the original Bash brother, was gone. Canseco himself was blindsided. He later admitted he was in on the deck circle when he found out about the trade.
Thinking, it's not April Fool's Day, so, I mean, this would be a very bad joke. And, Tony hugged me in the runway there, and he told me I should speak with Sandy, and I went up and spoke with Sandy.
Imagine that. One moment, you're warming up to hit another monster home run. The next, you're being shipped out of town like an afterthought. McGwire, now the lone Bash brother, kept doing what he did best, crushing home runs, but it wasn't the same. The A's dynasty was fading, and without Canseco, the heart of the show was gone. But that wasn't the worst part. Another controversy awaited them. Baseball has always loved its heroes, but by the late 90s, the whispers started. How did these guys get so big? How were they hitting balls farther than anyone had ever seen? Something didn't add up. At first, it was just speculation. Fans didn't want to believe their home run kings had an unfair advantage. And the league? It had no interest in asking too many questions. Not when these sluggers were bringing millions of fans through the gates and making baseball exciting again. But then, Canseco, never one to stay quiet, dropped a bombshell. Years after their playing days, he claimed that he and McGwire had been using performance-enhancing drugs for years. Not only that, but Canseco admitted to having injected McGwire with steroids.
When I went into the league in 1985 and compared to today, it's completely changed the game around, completely restructured the game.
When the truth about steroids came out, it wasn't just a scandal. It was an earthquake that shook the entire sport. And at the center of it all, the Bash brothers. Canseco didn't just admit to using steroids, he exposed the entire culture surrounding them.
At that time, I'd grown up with maybe 6 feet, 6'1", about 160 pounds. I said, well, I know how to make you stronger. I said, how? He says, steroids. I went.
In 2005, he released a tell-all book, Juiced, Wild Times, Rampant Roids, Smash Hits, and How Baseball Got Big, where he named names, detailed how steroids were used in clubhouses, and claimed that Major League Baseball knew what was happening but turned a blind eye.
Even in my era, when there was testing in the very beginning, if a player tested positive for something, Major League Baseball did not care. They basically covered it up.
Baseball fans hated him for it. Players called him a liar. He was blacklisted from the game. No coaching offers, no front office jobs, nothing. Even though many of his claims were later proven true, Canseco was treated like a pariah. The guy who once defined baseball's power surge was now unwelcome in the very sport he helped shape. But here's the wild part. He embraced it. Canseco turned himself into a media spectacle, appearing on reality shows, challenging people to celebrity boxing matches, and constantly stirring up controversy. He knew he'd never be in the Hall of Fame, so instead he made himself the villain of baseball history.
I think they should have been in the Hall of Fame. That era that, I guess steroids was going around, it really wasn't against the baseball rule, but then they made it out of the baseball rule.
McGwire took a different path. For years, he dodged the steroid questions. Even when he broke Roger Maris's single-season home run record in 1998, there were whispers, but he never admitted to anything.
Well, if you don't answer it, obviously that means you were doing it. Obviously he's not denying, he's not saying no, I never touched it. Obviously that means, yeah, what's the big deal? Everybody was doing it.
Then in 2010, he finally came clean. He admitted to using steroids during his career, but insisted they didn't make him a great hitter. I wish I had never touched steroids, McGwire said in a statement. It was foolish and it was a mistake. I truly apologize. Looking back, I wish I had never played during the steroid era, he said. A mistake? Maybe, but by then, it was too late. Baseball fans didn't forget. Even though he returned to the game as a hitting coach, his reputation was permanently stained. When it came time for Hall of Fame voting, the message from the baseball writers was clear. No way. McGwire never came close to getting the votes needed for induction, and in 2020, his time on the ballot ran out. One of the greatest power hitters in baseball history was shut out of the Hall forever. Even with all these scandals looming over their heads, we can't deny that the Bash brothers made baseball must-watch TV. Before the Bash brothers, teams focused on speed, contact hitting, and strategy. After them, it was all about power. They inspired a generation of power hitters, but they also became the face of the steroid scandal that rocked MLB in the 2000s. Their legacy is complicated, so were they heroes, villains, a little of both? Let us know in the comments. Although one thing is certain, they changed baseball forever, and whether fans love them or hate them, they'll never be forgotten.